Alright, what's up guys? Ryan from Elevate Security here. In this video we're going to be diving a little bit more in depth with the hash cracking, password cracking, stuff like that, using the offline attacks that I mentioned in a previous video. So in this one I'm going to be first going through, because there's different commands for different use cases basically, but I'm going to give you some of the basic ones here, and then include a hands-on example as well, using this OpenAdmin box here, because it involved using John. So, well, when it comes to the hash cracking, normally there's two things that you need. Now, one is the hash, of course, which if you get it, a lot of times the use case for this is if you find hashes through some kind of protocol, or even getting some low privilege access to the box. However you can find these hashes is fine. But yeah, of course you'll need the hash, and then you'll need a word list to run it against, because this is kind of like a brute force. It's basically a brute force attack against known hashes. So every password has a hash associated with it, right? So if it's a common password, then that hash would be in the word list, so it'll be able to do that. So if we have pre-computed hashes, then that is the fastest way for it to do the brute forcing. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to show you how to use John first, because that's probably like the most popular one. Now with John, and I'll just go ahead and pull up the man page so you can see like some of the basic uses of it, right? It's really good at finding those weak passwords, like I was saying. But it sort of depends on your word list too. Like that determines a lot of how successful you're going to be. You can use pretty massive word lists with these applications because they are offline and they're not traversing the network. So the nice thing about John is it will attempt to actually guess the encrypted hash based off, or like the format based off of the the hash you pass it. So you don't even necessarily have to know what kind of hashing algorithm is being used. It will try to detect that on its own, which is something that's pretty nice. So the general way that you can use this, that I would say, would be to actually use well, here we go. I think it's in your path on Kali by default, but I want to verify that first. Yes, it is. So what we can do is just John and then the name of your password file. If you store it in a file, that's normally the way to do it. You just create a file, name it whatever. This is just a placeholder here, name a password file, whatever you decide to call it, right? And then after you do that is when you do dash word list equals, and then whatever word list you want to use. Now, Kali Linux has a number of word lists in user share word lists. That's the whole command, by the way. User share word lists, and you'll see what kind of options you have here, right? Rocku.txt is a very popular one. I'm not sure if that was there by default, or maybe I moved that there. You could get it from the internet easily just by Googling Rocku word list or something like that, right? Other than that, there's also user share, the seclist one, right? I'm not sure where I have that on my system. Let's see. I don't know if it matters where I run this command from. Let me check. You can do a find command on it if not. So, actually I think I have something in opt, right? But if not, there is that seclist. I know I have it on here somewhere. I just don't feel like searching it up, spending too much time searching it up. I'll get to this one in a minute. This is a pretty useful tool. But what you can also do is you can grab, I'll just show you how to do it from here, right? You can go seclists and it's a GitHub page here by Daniel Miessler Sekulis on GitHub. And this has a lot of stuff, not just for usage with John, but also various other kind of brute forcing things you might want to do, like brute forcing usernames. Here it's got a number of word lists for that. Fuzzing stuff like for LFI, SQL injection, cross-site scripting, all kinds of good stuff. So I would highly recommend to grab this one and get it on your Kali box. This is one I've been using for quite a while. It's pretty good. So, for what we're talking about here, you go into passwords here and you can try these different ones and see which ones you have success with and which ones you like. But that's definitely what I'd recommend here. They even have cracked hashes here, like a dictionary here. And so, yeah, a number of potential good ones there. But Rocky.txt is a pretty tried and true standard one a lot of people use. Just know that one thing I didn't mention in my previous video talking about the hash cracking is that doing it on a VM, we can do it on this Kali Linux VM, but keep in mind that it'll be a lot slower than if we had a dedicated machine, right? It just runs slower on the VMs because of the hardware limitations, and obviously if you have a dedicated system to use towards cracking, that's going to be faster. And especially if you have like a really super duper high-end rig, it's going to be better for cracking. But I will say, when it comes to OSCP and stuff like that, you don't need that super high-powered rig to crack stuff. I pretty much just cracked everything in my Kali box, and that was fine, my Kali VM. So, yeah, that's completely fine. When you get to real world stuff and if you really want to get into the cracking stuff, I didn't even go this far, but it's an option to get your own cracking rig if you want. But it's more of a kind of cool to have thing rather than a you need this type of thing. And so that is the basic way that would run John. Let me just up arrow this a little bit here. Well, I guess it didn't save it, but just to recap, the way we do this is John, and then here's some placeholder values, right? Your file name, and then word list equals, and then password list, right? Or this is where you put your hashes, right? In a password file. Or sorry, in this file, right, is where you put your hashes, and then this one is where you'd put the file you want to use for brute forcing, so maybe rocky.txt or something like that. So that is the general way that you're normally going to be running John. Now, of course, there's so many different ways you can use John, and you can specify different things with various flags. I'll leave that up to you guys with the man page. I want to give you guys the most simple ways to get started, the most helpful information up front. I don't want to convolute things too much here. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you is Hashcat. That is another really popular program. It's basically used where you would use John most of the time. And, always a good idea to check out the man page when you first check out a command here. And so the way that Hashcat works is off of hash type as a number, right? So every different hash, whether it's SHA-256 or, I'm trying to think of the hashes off the top of my head, right? Or if it's NTLM, stuff like that, they'll have a hash number associated with it. So that's something that you could probably I'm sure you could easily look that up to see what number corresponds to what. But the way that I would typically run this, and let me just make sure that it is on my box, and it is, okay. Well, obviously it's in my path, right, if I was able to type man hashcat. But the way I'd like to run that normally is -m, as we saw earlier. This is where that number type comes in, hash type number, and this is the number that corresponds to that hash type. and then the hash file. And this is just going to be, the file with the hash in it. And these aren't, the reason I'm surrounding these in the greater than, less than, this is just to denote that this is a placeholder value. You wouldn't surround your file name in these. That's just the kind of notation I use. And then the word list file. You don't need to give any flags for any of these things. You just straight up put it back to back to back like this. So this is what your command will look like if you do the same thing with Hashcat. And of course, there's also another site that I want to mention that I didn't in the last video. It's hashes.org. And this is a pretty good one. In addition to crackstation.net that I mentioned being a very helpful site to crack stuff for you, you can also use hashes.org. And there's a cracking section as well, I believe, where you can basically use this to you search for hashes. It'll check the database for known hashes to see if there's anything that like if it's using a common password that they already found the hash for. It'll tell you what password corresponds to your hash. So a good way, another good resource to have, just in your back pocket there. But yeah, that's all I had for this video, except, wait, I almost forgot. We will now go into a practical example, right? All right, and now we will finish the video with this practical example here using, I'm going to have to go back to it. Let's see, Home Kali Hack the Box. OpenAdmin was the box. We got, so if I go in here, this is what I found from the box, right? I found an actual private key looking something like this, but it's encrypted, right? So, and that actually, this private key corresponded to, which user did that correspond to? Let's see. That was for Joanna. So if I try to do SSH Joanna at 10.10.10, I think this is 171, but also giving it -I in the private key, it prompts me for a passphrase. And so this is why we need to crack this, right? Because we need to crack the passphrase associated with this. Now, John, we can use John for this. However, John expects a very particular format when you pass this to it. It's not going to accept it in its current format. That is why we use this utility that I looked at earlier on this video, the sshng to john.py. It's a Python script that basically is going to take this here and put it in the format that John will accept, so we can run the John stuff on it, right? And so the way we can run this is do Python this file here, and then we got to give it that IDRSA, which we got to specify the path to that because it's not going to know where it is otherwise. And then we're going to say we want to write this to, I don't know, we'll call this hash, let's say. And, well, maybe I should have put it over in that thing, but that's fine. We have this right here. So if we take a look at this, this is what it looks like now. This is the format that John expects. Basically, the script made that conversion nicely for us. So now that we have it in the format that John does expect, we can actually use John to crack this. So the way that we can go ahead and do that is that we're going to need to use here, let me just clear the screen here. I know there's a lot going on. So we can just straight up give it the this file that we created, and then we just give it the word list, right? Just like I showed you guys before. We'll run this against rocku.txt. Now, where did I put that? I think that's in user share word lists. Rocku.txt. Believe that should be it. So this is what it's going to look like when it's running here. Just going to give you a little bit of info on what it's doing. And it's loading it in. And there you go. You see it comes back with the password Blood Ninjas. So this is how it looks like when you actually run it and when it actually finds a match. So now with that Blood Ninjas password, if we go back, it'll be easier if we just switch our directory back to where we were before. That way we don't have to specify the full path. Now we can run that SSH command from before. And we give it Blood Ninjas. I think I copied that. Yeah. Then we see we get in. So that's just a way that you can use John in a practical scenario, to showing you cracking this. Now this was using the actual SSH private key. So to show you that it can do more than just cracking just standard hashes, right? That was an example there. But of course, if you just have a hash, John can crack that as well once you give it a word list to brute force it against. So I hope this video was of help to you guys. If so, be sure to subscribe for more similar content and give me a like on the video. It definitely helps out with the algorithms. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video.